CNN host Jake Tapper responded to Marjorie Taylor Greene's latest attempt to dishonestly gain political points with her base with a truly perfect takedown. I have for you potentially one of the best segments from any news anchor in a really long time. CNN's Jake Tapper responded to Marjorie Taylor Greene introducing a resolution to censure Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Talib over her rhetoric on the Israel-Hamas war, but more specifically, Greene accuses Talib of leading an anti-Semitic insurrection at the Capitol. Yes, she made it about trying to downplay the significance of January 6th, something they've been doing a lot, by pointing at any civil disobedience at the Capitol, any demonstrations at the Capitol, and saying, see, that's like January 6th. It's absurd. And Jake Tapper has some main points he'll make. We'll outline those. But also, I want this to serve as yet another reminder of something I bring up from time to time. You can't have honest conversations with dishonest people. Meaning, with all these complex and serious subjects in the world that we discuss, the only valuable conversations and debates that can be had are among honest people. The second we start treating people like Marjorie Greene as honest actors with these sorts of actions, all hope for progress is lost. We'll talk more about that after the clip, and I'll play it in two parts. Here, Tapper's making the point that while there are absolutely fair criticisms of Rashida Talib, for example, it took her a week to take back her pretty authoritative claim that Israel struck the hospital in Gaza. Number one, Marjorie Taylor Greene has no place in these conversations. Number two, it's extremely low character on the part of Greene to attempt to dishonestly exploit a serious and devastating subject just to get some political points. For example, like I said, using it as an opportunity to downplay the significance of January 6th and blur those lines between that and other demonstrations at the Capitol. If you cared about anti-Semitism, which is what she's saying this resolution is about, you wouldn't be trying to use it as an opportunity to win cheap political points. But take a look at this from Jake Tapper. First, here's him responding to the resolution itself to censure Rashida Talib, which, as a reminder, is a formal condemnation that would also remove her from her committees. And then I'll show you his recap and just a little bit of Greene's horrific past with anti-Semitism.
And it gets worse, because when you read Greene's resolution, you realize it is written by someone who seems to have learned about the Arab-Israeli conflict maybe 10 minutes before, who maybe didn't even have access to Wikipedia. And B, while there are plenty of valid criticisms of Congresswoman Talib, this resolution twists a bunch of things that she said beyond recognition. And C, the resolution seems much more focused on January 6th than it does on October 7th. Throughout its pages, Marjorie Taylor Greene describes this act of civil disobedience from a bunch of left-wing Jewish groups that are critical of Israel's government, this act as an insurrection. This is not an insurrection. It might be a bunch of folks with whom you disagree. It might be a bunch of people you think are misguided, acting in a way you don't like. But this is not an insurrection. Anti-Semitism is not a cudgel to be used against people for political points. Nor is Islamophobia or racism or anti-gay behavior or misogyny or any other kind of bigotry. Just over 3 weeks ago, 1,400 people, mostly Jews, mostly civilians, were slaughtered here in some of the cruelest and most unimaginable ways, in the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. This shit is not a game.
And he's exactly right. I have a lot more to show you from that segment. He does a brutal takedown of Marjorie Greene using her past statements. But first, to respond to that, I'll say again, why Marjorie Greene would make her resolution about blurring the lines between January 6th and the demonstrations we've seen in recent weeks in relation to the war between Hamas and Israel is beyond me. Again, she's accusing Talib of leading an anti-Semitic insurrection at the Capitol. Y'all heard about that insurrection that happened recently, right? And Jake Tapper noted, trying to use anti-Semitism as a cudgel against your political enemy when clearly you have no care in the world about actually combating it based on your history and stunts like this needs to be called out. If we want to seriously assess the different takes we've seen since October 7th, the terrorist attack, on the war more broadly, or the need to protect civilians, Palestinian, Israeli, amid the war, or zooming out and just talking about the broader history between Israel and Palestine, step one, if we want to have a meaningful conversation about those things, let's exclude Marjorie Taylor Greene. We get nowhere when people with dishonest intentions are a part of this conversation, or dishonest actions like this one are taken seriously. And because of the vile nature of and damage done by anti-Semitism, we should be serious about wanting to combat it. You know who's not going to be helpful with that? Marjorie Greene. Making sure that's called out, I think, is crucial if we want to experience any form of progress in these discussions. Now here's more from Jake Tapper's segment. Here he's highlighting the history of Marjorie Greene and Donald Trump when it comes to anti-Semitism as a relevant conversation if she's bringing it up here. And this was what led into the previous part of it that I just showed you.
The degree to which some folks only pretend to care about anti-Semitism when they can weaponize it never ceases to amaze. Allow me to tell you about a brand new House Republican resolution to censure Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Talib of Michigan, the first Palestinian American woman in Congress. Now, accusations of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic statements from Talib are not exactly new, and I'm just talking about from her fellow House Democrats. Attention on Talib refocused after the explosion at the Baptist Hospital in Gaza a week and a half ago. The Hamas-run Palestinian Ministry of Health immediately blamed Israel for what they called a strike, while Israeli and eventually U.S. intelligence ultimately suggested it was more likely from a misfired Palestinian rocket. Despite all the new evidence, Talib waited more than a week to add a clarification to her tweet that others have raised doubts about the claim. She did leave her original tweet up. She got a lot of criticism from fellow Democrats, and you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I can see why that might bother, even outrage people. But are House Republicans really in a position to censure Talib? I mean, the leading Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, I mean, he dined with Holocaust deniers. Donald Trump posted a screed accusing liberal Jews of, quote, voting to destroy America and Israel last Rosh Hashanah, to nary a peep from any House Republican leaders. I mean, let's just take as an example, I don't know, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. I mean, Greene spoke at the white supremacist conference run by Holocaust denier, racist, anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, who participated in that hateful 2017 Charlottesville rally. Now, Greene later said she didn't know Fuentes' views, although they were pretty well known. This is the same Marjorie Taylor Greene who has pushed the great replacement theory in videos, the deranged notion that rich Jews are trying to replace white Americans and Westerners with blacks and brown Muslims. Not to mention, of course, her Jewish space laser conspiracy that a consortium, including, yes, wealthy Jews, were using lasers on satellites to start forest fires. Here in Israel, Greene has gotten some attention for belittling the Holocaust by tweeting, quote, Joe Biden is Hitler, with the hashtag Nazi Joe has got to go, and for saying that then Speaker Nancy Pelosi's House floor mask mandate was an abuse, just like how Jews were, quote, put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. Under fire, Greene visited the Holocaust Museum and apologized. So let me tell you something. You're never going to believe who the Republican offering this motion to censure Congresswoman Rashida Talib is. I want you to take a guess. Go ahead. Take a guess. That's right. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And everything that Jake Tapper outlined there was absolutely the case. The Republican Party refuses to reject from its party people who openly promote anti-Semitic ideologies. And again, you saw it there. His lower third Chiron said anti-Semitism is not a cudgel to be used for political points, which is exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to do here. instead of having a serious conversation about anti-Semitism and its role more specifically in some of the conversations about this current conflict, or about what the best path forward is for the United States in its management of the crisis. Marjorie Greene is just trying to exploit the moment to rile up her base, as we've seen a lot of people doing recently. And it serves as a reminder of a really upsetting part of modern American politics. There are so many unserious people in positions of power. Liz Cheney called them idiots getting elected, that it's so hard to have serious conversations. The world is deeply complex and requires very mindful and nuanced discussions. But instead of devoting our energy to that, we have to deal with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who adds nothing of value to these issues. Now, of course, the absurd nature of Marjorie Taylor Greene accusing someone of anti-Semitism has been touched on extensively, not to mention accusing someone of leading an insurrection. She perpetuated the lies that caused and has now spent years downplaying the significance of the actual insurrection on January 6th. She was in favor of just overthrowing our democratic process to install Trump, the president, as the insurrectionists were. Now, by the way, any Republican who votes in favor of this resolution should be asked a million times about the past actions and statements by members of their own party, starting with, I don't know, the person who introduced the resolution, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here was, by the way, Hakeem Jeffries' response to this resolution.
Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a resolution this morning to censure Congresswoman Talib for comments on Israel. Do you have a response to that, and do you expect that some Democrats may support that resolution?
I haven't seen the resolution, but the notion that with all of the challenges we are confronting right now, House Republicans are racing to once again lift up something that Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing tells us that their focus continues to be in the wrong place. House Democrats are going to continue to focus on issues like inflation and affordability and the cost of food and creating better paying jobs and making sure that we bring economic opportunity to every single neighborhood and town throughout America. Clearly, House Republicans continue to be driven by the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, George Santos, Jim Jordan, and others. And they do not have the best interests of the American people at heart.
And he hits the nail right on the head. All the time we spend dealing with dishonest people like Marjorie Taylor Greene pulling stunts like this is time we could have spent talking about real issues, including anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of bigotry. Or, as Hakeem Jeffries noted, the countless other issues facing the American people. But instead, we have to deal with what has become a party controlled by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. They're not interested in serious governance or addressing real problems, but solely interested in the clicks, in the attention, the political points, and in owning the other side. So I'll say again, the way that we begin to have more meaningful conversations about serious subjects is to tune out the nonsense of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership to get access to a daily bonus show, plus you're supporting the show. That's awesome. Plus follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, Twitter or X at Luke P. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter summarizing the previous day's events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief. And I'll see you all next time.